Have you ever experienced going to bed at night, trying to fall asleep, and you just can't because of racing thoughts and your brain just doesn't seem to be capable of stopping? Or you finally fall asleep and then you wake up again multiple times at night. And I have friends that once they wake up in the middle of the night, they can't fall asleep quickly. So they're up for 2 hours at night. And then you wake up in the morning and you just don't feel rested because you didn't have a good night's sleep. And while there are a lot of things that you can do to improve the quality of your sleep, like consistent bed and wake time, avoiding alcohol and blue light before bedtime, all of the things that I've talked about on this channel before, there are still many that struggle with sleeping well. Something that appears to be so basic, yet a lot of people are struggling. And so in this video, I'd like to introduce you to Somnee. It's a headband that uses a combination of EEG and gentle neurostimulation to nudge your brain into a state that's more conducive to falling asleep quickly, staying asleep, and having good quality sleep, meaning waking up in the morning and feeling energetic and refreshed. And I've been using Somnee for the past 50 nights or so. I haven't used it every single day because I wanted to find out how it's different between using Somnee and not using it. But for the past 50 nights, or 49 to be exact, I've recorded my sleep every single day using a medical grade EEG to understand what's going on inside of my head in terms of brainwave activity, my ultra-human ring air, as well as 8 sleep. And with those 3 measuring devices combined, I've tried to figure out what impact has Somnee on my sleep. And mind you, I'm already doing a lot of things right when it comes to sleeping well, and I generally sleep well. Yet I've noticed an improvement when using Somnee. Specifically, I've noticed that I fall asleep even quicker. And I'm not someone who struggles with falling asleep quickly, but I've noticed that my sleep pressure is just incredibly higher when using Somnee. For 15 minutes before going to bed, my eyes start burning, my lids are very heavy, and I just want to close my eyes and fall asleep. I've also noticed that my resting heart rate has dropped slightly, my heart rate variability has increased, and my slow wave intensity, that's a measure of the quality of my deep sleep on the one hand, as well as the slow wave activity, the intensity of those slow waves in non-deep sleep phases. So in certain phases of light sleep or in segments of light sleep that also can contribute to your restorative sleep. And so I've done this for the past 49 nights and I've noticed improvements. Now here is the thing. As I said, I'm already someone who sleeps fairly well, but there are many who don't. And for those, I think Somnee can mean a significant improvement in sleep quality and the ability to fall asleep quickly. So let's talk about what is Somnee exactly. How does it work? What's the science behind it? And anything in between. So as I mentioned, Somnee is a wearable. You wear it on your head, fairly straightforward. It has electrodes in here on the front that measure your brain activity, the electrical signals in your brain basically. And then it has those gel electrodes that snap on magnetically here to the headband that provide that gentle neurostimulation. And so in other words, it's like, gentle electricity that influence what's going on inside of your head from a brain activity, because your brain speaks in electrical signals. That's how the brain works. And so instead of doing deep breathing and some of the other things that you can do to also influence the activity in your brain, you can do it directly, straight on basically, with Somnee. And the technology behind that gentle stimulation, it's called transcranial electrical stimulation, or TESS or TES. And Somnee has conducted a study in an advanced sleep lab in Berkeley, California, and paired that with a 1500 night home pilot. Users at home used Somnee and reported then on how it changed their sleep quality. And Somnee figured out through those studies that users on average slept 37 minutes longer than using comparable technology, but in a non-personalized manner. So what does that mean? Well, maybe I should explain you so you understand better what that personalized versus non-personalized means, is how Somnee actually works. So when you use Somnee, when you start using Somnee, the first 7 nights, Somnee maps your brain. So it tries to learn your brain activity and brain activity patterns before bedtime. So again, as I said, you use Somnee before going to bed for 15 minutes each day. The first 7 nights, it's kind of in learning mode. It maps your entire brain from a brain activity perspective. And once it understands how your brain works, then it starts applying gentle neurostimulation in real time that's personalized to your brain activity. So instead of using a standard protocol that was developed in a lab based on user averages, etc., Somnee actually personalizes the neurostimulation based on what it learned in the first 7 days, but also what it keeps learning as you use it. So every time you use Somnee after those 7 days, it takes a baseline recording first. That's, I think, a 30-second or so recording where it understands what's currently going on in your head. Are you thinking about stuff that makes you anxious, that might prevent you from falling asleep, etc.? Because all of that reflects in certain brainwave patterns, and then it applies that stimulation that in real time responds to how your brain is responding to the stimulation. And so the thing is, you need to use Somnee for 14 to 21 days. The first 7 days again is the learning, and then it starts personalizing your treatment, basically your neurostimulation. And that again, it keeps learning, but throughout the next 2 weeks or so, you will notice a significant improvement, or at least I should say 80% of the users that Somnee has tested with have noticed a dramatic improvement, again, compared to obviously not using Somnee at all, or using a fixed protocol, a fixed neurostimulation. And so to go back to those numbers that the study found, 37 minutes more sleep versus 3 extra minutes that users got with non-personalized stimulation. The sleep onset latency, meaning how quickly users fell asleep, dropped to 7 minutes versus 22 minutes of those users who used the non-personalized stimulation. And I mean, even 22 minutes, I would argue, is a good, there are users, or there are people who try to fall asleep for an hour and can't. So 22 minutes, I think, for those who suffer from not being able to fall asleep is a pretty good number, but 7 is even better, And then the other thing the study concluded was, or found out, was that Somnee is actually more capable, 4 times as capable at improving sleep efficiency than melatonin. And that's, I think, the go-to over-the-counter sleep medication that a lot of people use to try to sleep better. And so 4 times better than melatonin. That's fairly impressive. And we'll talk about the nuance to that here in a little bit when I talk about what I've experienced and how it's been working for me. Speaking of, 49 days, 49 nights, I should say, of experimentation using Somnee. On some days I used it for a week, then I didn't use it for a week, then I used it on and off, etc. So I tried to kind of mix it up after the initial brain mapping and learning period, of course. And here is what I've noticed. Based on the EEG that I've been wearing at night, it's a clinical grade EEG that measured my brain activity throughout the entire night, my slow wave intensity. And that's an indication of sleep quality, because it gives you an idea of how deep my deep sleep was, improved by 11.6%. My HRV increased by 6.8 milliseconds. My resting heart rate, which typically hovers in the mid 40s to low 50s, dropped by 1.5 beats per minute. And my total sleep time increased by 5 minutes. The sleep scores that I get from Ultrahuman and 8 Sleep and Muse, etc., also increased. With Ultrahuman just by 0.09 points, 8 Sleep 2.94 points, and Muse 7.79. Muse is the EEG that I mentioned before. So across the board, I've seen improvements in many of my sleep metrics. Now, I specifically didn't look too much at sleep stage analysis, like how much time I spent in deep sleep, etc., because honestly, I don't necessarily think those are incredibly accurate coming from consumer-grade wearable devices. But some of the other data, like heart rate, I know, HRV, those are fairly accurate, even when measured on a finger or on a wrist, and certainly, with the EEG. So even though I sleep already incredibly well in most nights, I do most everything right, meaning I avoid late meals, alcohol, I stop my caffeine intake at about 10 a.m. I have a consistent sleep and wake time, I avoid blue lights at night, etc. I do a lot of things right, and even so, Somnee managed to improve the quality of my sleep. And I can only imagine, if someone doesn't have their sleep dialed in as much as I have, what an impact the device could have on those people. And I'm not sure if I mentioned it before, but studies have shown that Somnee works for about 80% of the population. And there are reasons for that why it doesn't work for 20%. And one is, just the fit, shape of the skull, etc. There are many factors, many of which I talk about in my blog post that I'm going to link down below if you're interested in why it might not work for you. But even from a fit perspective, I've learned that, as I've showed you before, the electrodes here, to make sure they are really tight against your skull, especially if you have more of a flat or more of a rounded forehead, you can actually use like small cotton balls, put them in there, and that pushes pushes the electrodes out a little bit to provide a tighter fit. So that's one of the things that you can do, and to probably even improve then the chances of Somnee working for you. But again, 80% is a fairly good number. And so what does it take? How do you use Somnee? Well, it's fairly straightforward. All you do is, first of all, you don't need this in the beginning. You wear the device like so on your forehead. You make sure it's fairly snug. You don't want to use lotion or anything on your head. In fact, I recommend washing your head with soap, with a non-toxic soap, so you have skin oil and everything off your forehead to provide a better surface area and contact and for the electrodes, for those gel electrodes. And those are replaceable, by the way, and you get them with your Somnee subscription. You get replacements without paying extra. You just clip them in here, you hear that, and once they're in, you just pull your hair back, and then there is a magnetic dock up here, and you hear again the click, and you press them on your forehead, and that is it. So you wear this 15 minutes before bedtime, and you can, the good news is with Somnee, you don't have to close your eyes. There is a baseline recording 30 seconds before the session starts and 1 minute after it's finished, to kind of it can tell how much the stimulation worked for you. During that time, it is recommended to close your eyes, don't talk, don't move, just be still and hang tight for a second. But once the session starts and you can feel tingling on your forehead, some people say it feels like a little burn, but it's not uncomfortable, and you can change the intensity in the app if you want to. But I had it on the highest setting and I just felt that tingling on my forehead. During that time, you can talk, you can watch TV, you can read a book. The only thing you shouldn't be doing is like move around, because that can mess with the contact and prevent the device from getting a good reading and applying the proper stimulation. But that's pretty much it. Once you're done, you take off the electrodes, and you can, the device comes with a charger. It's a magnetic charger again that's plugged in, and you can just set them on here, or you can put them back on where you got them from. This is like a sheet with a foil on it, and you can stick the electrodes back on there to protect them, to prevent them from becoming non-sticky. And then every 2 or 3 sessions, you replace the electrodes. And again, if you run out, you get more from Somnee as part of your subscription. You do that, and you'll notice within a couple of days that you likely get incredibly sleepy. I typically wore Somnee, sitting on the couch with my wife. Either we watched something or we talked, and especially when we talked, and I wore Somnee, and then suddenly my eyelids got really heavy, my eyes started burning, and I said, maybe I gotta go to bed. I can't keep my eyes open any longer. And so for me, that's been I've noticed that dramatic difference in how my sleep pressure increased while wearing Somnee. And I typically don't wake up very often at night. If I do, then I fall right back asleep. So I haven't really noticed any changes in that perspective, but I've noticed that waking up, I just feel a little bit more rested. And that's probably because I had more or higher slow wave intensity when I used Somnee the evening before going to bed. So that's what I've noticed. But again, based on the studies I've seen, some of the clinical studies that Somnee has published, 80% of the population have noticed a dramatic improvement in sleep length, sleep duration, ability to fall asleep quickly, and just overall sleep quality. And, I want to quickly talk about, the melatonin comparison, because, again, Somnee claims that Somnee is, or the device is 4 times as effective to improve sleep than melatonin. And melatonin, here is the thing, it gets out of the system relatively quickly. So melatonin is a great way to help you fall asleep quickly, but it doesn't necessarily do a whole lot to help you stay asleep. That's maybe one of the misconceptions a lot of people have when they take melatonin. Oh, I'm going to sleep better. No, you might fall asleep quicker, but once it has worn off, once it has metabolized, you might still struggle in the second half of the night. And so so I don't necessarily think that Somnee helps you fall asleep 4 times quicker than with melatonin, but the quality of your sleep, once, you get past the initial falling asleep phase, is significantly better, 4 times better with Somnee. And so I can attest to it, because I've experimented with melatonin in the past, and it has done nothing for, the second half of the night. If I do something stupid like consume 2 glasses of wine before going to bed or anything of that nature, and then I struggle in the second half of the night, melatonin doesn't make a difference, but Somnee does, because it lowers my resting heart rate a little bit, increases my HRV. So overall, it is the better tool. Not that I'm recommending drinking before bedtime and then using Somnee to mitigate the poor lifestyle choice, but nonetheless, let's talk about the app maybe real quick, and what the app can do that comes with Somnee, and that links, actually it connects via Bluetooth. And then in the app, you can not only start the session, you can change device settings like the intensity of the stimulation, but you also get a some reporting. You know that it did something, so you can go back and see how, what was the score maybe that you got from the app. But you can also, and I think that's even more important, provides you a sleep journal capability, because even in the scientific realm, in the scientific studies, instead of just using recorded biometrics, the most reliable way of telling if something is working in the sense of, improving your sleep is to wait maybe 30 to 60 minutes in the morning and then assess. How do you feel? Do you feel less anxious than usual? Do you feel more energetic? Do you feel more rested? Do you feel like you slept enough? And by journaling those things and then going back, you can really detect a trend and say, yes, when using Somnee, I feel less anxious in the morning, less like, I need to do stuff or I didn't do stuff. I feel more at peace. I feel more rested. I feel more like I slept enough. My sleep was good enough. And so that's a very powerful capability that I think is underrated, that you should be really focusing on, to journal how you feel. And that's one of the features that you get with the app. Now let's talk about, some of the limitations and downsides maybe of Somnee. First of all, as I mentioned already, it doesn't work for everyone. There are some users, be it because of the shape of their head or other reasons, stuff that's going on inside of their head, that where Somnee is not as effective maybe, or not effective at all. That's number one. Number two is, you require, or you need to sign up for a subscription. You can pick between a monthly and an annual subscription. We talk about pricing in a little bit, because it is, after all, fairly inexpensive for what it delivers, and we'll talk about it. But nonetheless, you need that subscription. There is also, Somnee might impact your evening or sleep routine. For me, I typically put on my lotion at night, be it the Young or the OneSkin or whatever I use, some non-toxic skincare product to, help with aging and cell senescence. And I couldn't use it on my forehead on nights where I used Somnee, or I had to wait until I stopped using Somnee, or I took Somnee off and then applied the lotion. So that might slightly impact your evening routine. If you put on lotion before you, if you're sweated or whatever, you're also supposed to wash your forehead. Again, not a big deal, but just something to keep in mind. An extra step maybe that you have to do. For me, the biggest thing was that if I used Somnee in bed already, that I had to take it off, even though I was already so sleepy that I could have fallen asleep right away. And you don't want to really fall asleep with the device. It's not bulky, but it's on your forehead, and you probably want to take this off. Also, the electrodes last longer if you take them off and put them back on the foil or on the charger. So that's an extra step. And since I don't, and what you can obviously do is you can have your charger on your nightstand. Now I try to have no electronics on my nightstand, so I charged Somnee in the office. So that meant if I wanted to use Somnee in the evening, or in bed in particular, I had to get up, put it on a charger so it's ready for the next day. I could have done it then the next morning, but since I wanted to put the electrodes back anyway, I had to get up, and that was not a major disruption, but it was like something extra that I wouldn't have done normally. When I used Somnee on the couch, it was a different story, because I was with my wife, we used Somnee, and then it was time to go to bed. So I took it off, and on my way to the bedroom, I passed by my office and I just put it on a charger. No big deal. But that's something you want to think about. From a pricing perspective, there are two options with Somnee. One is you can sign up or you can buy the device and the annual subscription, and that retails for $429. And if you break that down, it's like 42 cents a day or a night for better sleep. That's not terrible, especially if you've been struggling with poor sleep quality. You can also sign up for a monthly subscription, so you pay $2.99 for the device and then $18 a month for the app. There's a 45-day free trial. So to find out, if you're among those 20% that Somnee doesn't work for, you'll find out in the first 2 weeks likely, 3 weeks maybe, but you have 45 days to test the device. And if you determine, well, it's just not working for you, you can send it back risk-free for a refund. So there is really no risk, just try it out. And I have a code for you as well, MK30. If you want to give Somnee a try, use that code MK30. That gives you $30 off. That helps me, make more videos like this and do more testing. And yeah, so that's the pricing wise. From a safety perspective, I've seen no evidence whatsoever that transcranial electrical stimulation is bad for you. That's been used in a very long time. It's fairly low power, so you're not going to get electrocuted or anything. It's kind of like, I don't know if you've used a TENS unit, for your muscles, to electrical stimulation for your skin or your muscle tissue, it's significantly less like that, obviously. And I've not seen, again, any evidence that it might be harmful or a safety issue, whatever. The most thing you could, maybe feel is a tingling, maybe a mild burning sensation. You just, reduce the intensity in the app a little bit and you're good to go. So not a problem whatsoever. Who should it try? I think it's for anyone who is struggling with winding down, falling asleep quickly, staying asleep and waking up refreshed in the morning. Obviously, as I said, there are a lot of things that you can and probably should be doing from a lifestyle perspective to support your sleep. But if you've been doing a lot of the things right already and you're still struggling a little bit with calming your head down, etc., Somnee is an excellent device. And obviously, for biohackers or those who are just trying to optimize even further than what can be done with regular lifestyle interventions, Somnee is an excellent device. I've been using it again for the past 49 nights or so. It's worked for me, even though I'm already doing a lot of things right. I think Somnee can really be a game changer for those who struggle with sleep and those who should definitely try it out. It's risk-free. Try it out for 45 days and see if it works for you. If it does, you're welcome. If it doesn't, just send it back for a refund. No big deal whatsoever. But I'd like to hear from you. Have you heard about Somnee? Have you heard about transcranial electrical stimulation? Or any of that? How does it work for you? Has it worked for you? Have you tried it? If not, give it a try and let me know in the comments. Share this video with someone who might be struggling with getting good sleep every single night, and stick around, subscribe, and I hope I'll see you in the next video.